Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin. Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019, on my way into the Emerald City for work, and I thought I'd shoot a little video. Usually it's about my technical stuff, and I have thought of a few things I'd like to talk about on the technical front, including how Pandas is really so central to my career repositioning as a quote data master. And I could plunge into that, but I feel I need to get a little more exercise on specifically the .loc and .iloc methods and object-oriented notation. Those would be called methods, but people throw around API, the interface. The .loc and the .iloc interfaces to Pandas data frame objects. I need to get into my fingers. I need to master it. And I am not actually ready to talk about the things you should do in pursuit of that, although I have installed Juno on my iPhone. So I can run a little local copy of Jupyter Notebook right here on the same phone that I'm shooting the video in. And that leads to one of the concepts I'd like to talk about in this video, but again, I'll probably be skipping over it in favor of another thing, an experience I had recently reading TheLittlePrince, and how it touched me so deeply, and probably so much more many years later than the first couple of times I read it, because of where I am in my life. And so professionally, it's all about Pandas and pulling data and manipulating data and joining and transforming and pivoting and all this other stuff you might do. Eventually, out in the future, maybe some machine learning stuff. But for now, it's the basic IT plumbing. And so I am revisiting those important books in my life that have instilled in me the key concepts that have made me resilient, continuing to bounce back, continuing to stay relevant in a rapidly changing world that has so much in it that it's hard to narrow down what to focus on and why. And I never really did everything with my life that I thought maybe I would, according to a very sort of green arrow way I was raised to view the world, that everything is an objective and goals, and you're on a hunt and you gotta win your bread to feed the village. You gotta win, it's not bread, this is pre-agriculture, so you gotta kill your mastodon to feed the village through the winter. And you're very nomadic, so you follow the herd, which means you only have and master the tools you can easily carry with you and have on you. It's a different way of thinking and a different lifestyle than what we have today, which is very much post-agriculture, where, you know, employees work farms and homes consists of yards so big that you need employees to work your yard just to keep it from being overrun. So it's a agricultural based and very consumer based society, culture, because there's got to be people always working, running on the hamster wheel, such as it were, to keep the economy going, so that the people who owned the land had more income from those who worked it, and so on upward to a top level hierarchy, which gets a cut of everything and makes them very, very wealthy. So the traditional race in life that parents, I think, tend to put their their kids on the aligned path towards, is being at the very tippy top of that distribution curve and to become one of the haves, perchance to take care of them in their old age. It's all about insurance plans. The same equivalent things existed when we were nomadic, and all these hedging of bets in life, generationally through natural selection, those who were good at it, it got coded into us. The capacity to think through and work through things and stay nimble against all odds, to keep trying, to never give up, and to make it every once in a while succeed and allow yourself to pull yourself back up to where you want to be, to self-correct. So how does this all come around to The Little Prince? Well, it's a book that was originally written in French at about the end of World War II, I think around 1949 or something. At any rate, it was a writer who was apparently crash landed in a desert where they were a long walk from any hope of help. And during that time, he came into communication with his inner child, who was talked out of drawing as a key pastime because it wasn't doctor, lawyer, accountant, someone who pushed around numbers and data, or, was a hero helping people in their health. So it's a small selection of fields that were worthy, and all that other stuff that sounded like free expression and art and creativity were sort of shut down, the kibosh put on it. And it's understandable during the Industrial Revolution, because all you basically had to be able to do is work some part in an assembly line and specialize and do the same thing well over and over, and you were guaranteed a career and a place in life. So this writer happened to become a pilot, and I guess during the war he was flying a lot. But at any rate, for some reason or other that they don't explore in the book, he ends up, according to the story, and I'm assuming it's somewhat autobiographical, it's certainly written to imply that it is, he comes in touch with the Little Prince character, who is a inner manifestation of the young child self of him that he had completely lost contact with. And he was sort of reacquainting himself with his younger self, and his younger self was acquainting himself for the first time with his older self, not necessarily recognizing his older self. So it's a one-way kind of dissociative experience. But he got to know the Little Prince and went back and did an inventory of his life experiences, which were masterfully symbolized by people living on planets. And I think we're going to be passing a little bit of bad audio here, but because the iPhone doesn't have pause on video, we're just going to power through it. And like I always say, it's not worth editing. If you're doing your original shooting just here on an iPhone because you're inspired to do so and you don't have a selfie stick on you or anything, it's better to treat it just as if it were a live video. And I should probably start doing these videos live so that by the time I stop recording, it goes up as a published live video event as soon as I have broad enough bandwidth. That's the direction I believe I'm going with these videos, because if you don't edit, why not have the advantage of showing off? You can be one of these live channels. You've got what it takes to just broadcast yourself and maybe talk while you're doing it about worthwhile stuff. And the worthwhile thing in this case is a re-looking at the book The Little Prince with a perspective of someone who has a don't go obsolete in tech in here in the big Emerald City, where all the best jobs are, by being a closed-minded old man who chose piloting when you really wanted to be an artist and draw. I connect very deeply to this book because this is precisely what I did. I tried to get back to the drawing stuff in college. So I went to school first for mechanical engineering, which could have been one of those power jobs down the line. Maybe not. I should have probably done computer science. With that sort of timing, I should have been into computers. And that was a sort of a critical mistake there, because in later years, I've come to learn and understand I love all that computer stuff. Now, what I don't want to be is responsible for a large-scale deployment with a lot of users, because with that kind of responsibility, you don't want to be on the hook. It's too large a piece of your soul to be the guy responsible for the continuous running of some app that you wrote that people are using at scale and blah blah. So for that stuff, there's all that wonderful cloud services, and you can use, I think it's called Kubernetes, to really easily manage and spin up multiple instances of a system, not even just a generic Linux server, but all these containers that Docker made so popular. Now, this is such a logical thing because Linux people have been doing it for years under the kind of label of changing your CH root. You know, the root of your working directory of your entire Linux system. If you just point it from here to there, the low-level routines connect to things that are in known locations, but in all other ways, after maybe at most a memory flush of certain things, you've switched what's running in the computer. You've changed channels, such as it were, altered state. And in today's world of multi-core CPUs, it's not difficult for these server farms to be able to do that for every person out there they meet. Hi, how you doing? Here's a virtual machine. And by the way, it's better than a virtual machine because it's running under operating system level virtualization. More bad audio. Wonderful. Okay. So I'll power through this and I'll make this a cool part of my video. Lighthouse Museum. Work going on the Lighthouse Museum. That's good. Money's being put into this post-Sandy devastation waterfront area that is Staten Island, not far from the ferry terminal. So, you know, a lot of business comes through here. It's a main commuting route, and there's a lot of really cool old-timey stuff in this neighborhood. Well, anyway, the audio is better, so I go back to my main story. So, spinning up virtual machines is way better than it was in the past. And once again, my experience from the past has soured me to very awesome, viable solutions these days. And to put that in perspective, I made Levinix, my own spin of a certain type of Linux called Tiny Core Linux, which is like a mini Debian. And it fits into a tiny footprint, like 10 megabytes. So this is like old school Linux, where you have everything you need under such a small footprint. With one big gotcha, you usually have to compile your own software and deal with dependencies. Not so with Tiny Core Linux. It's got a system just like the Debian apt-get or Debian package manager or Synapse or Synaptic or something, the desktop version. So they've got a lot of names for the fact that software dependencies are now dealt with by large databases of what interacts well with what, and things being able to install themselves plus all their dependencies. There's a couple other levels of working system isolation going on here that people in the Python world call virtual environments. Fair enough. It's not a virtual machine. It's not simulating, hardware. It's just containing where everything is looked for as if that were the operating system root. And that's fair enough. So I went off on another tangent, but there was a tangent saying that as a software developer, a casual one, not my full-time main job, mind you, as someone who dabbles with software to make it a source of a secret weapon, you sometimes have to take up things again that you had a bad taste in your mouth from before, because things change, things get better, and the very operating systems add support and formalization for all this hacky stuff that everyone thought was so cool in the past. So things change, and some of the ideas you've had long ago are now much more implementable because you can lean on large outside technology infrastructure systems. And there's something for Kubernetes that lets you do that really easily. It has like a K8 in the name, and I have to remember what it is, but I'm gonna be expanding my small tool set to maybe accommodate something that spins up different virtual machines, tiny ones, small footprint ones, like Linux did, because I am trying to give up Linux as its own separate project by combining virtual machines, probably with Anaconda installs, would be my guess, because those two together give you everything you need to do portable Python learning to take you from a Jupyter Notebook environment, which is a lot easier to use than IDEs and text editors, and can move you along through here's how you schedule a thing. And then I'll do things both old school way, the way I was drawn to when I first realized that doing things like automation was a form of drawing and freedom and self-expression. That in the computer world, it's all about automations. It's all about making things take a series of motions to represent something you had visualized. And how different is that really than painting? So I'm getting familiar with my young self in a similar fashion as the Little Prince was, drawing the connections between drawing and creativity and visualization and, you know, surprise and sharing and, you know, just the whole creative experience that's normally associated with illustration and artwork, and connecting it to that, finding that same sort of satisfaction out of Jupyter Notebook, Python, and all things generally technology that doesn't rub you excessively the wrong way. So taking up JavaScript again, because even though the few times I've tried it in the past, and there's been multiple times from Netscape Enterprise server, you know, we're talking the 90s here, all the way up through as an alternative language and active server page, up through something called Helma, and on the Rhino engine before before Google's V8 engine took off so much. So I've tried JavaScript time and again and have hated it every time. But along comes Chrome with the ability to automate it using the client library called Puppeteer, which is only JavaScript. So the time has come to take up JavaScript again. So I am revisiting my old young self, exactly like in The Prince, and figuring out what those flowers were. There were true loves I had, passions, things like drawing that got snuffed out and left because you left your home planet in favor of other adventures because you wanted to know more of life. You left who you are, your young child, the initial interest that sparked off your love of life. So you got to go back, you got to roll back things back, talk to that inner child, just like in the book The Prince, and you have to get in touch with what your inner flower was, the rose, the thing that was actually tough to keep going. It took a little bit of nurturing. It didn't just spring into life and thrive. You had to block the wind from it and deal with its fussiness. But there was a certain satisfaction of having this extra thing, this beauty in your life. It was yours. You thought it was so special. So all these secret weapons I'm discovering now under typically Jupyter Notebook, under Pandas, Yeah, under Python, under Pandas. So Pandas under Python, under Jupyter Notebook, under whatever, because virtualizations, containers, Microsoft's Azure, Jupyter Notebook environment, which brings the cloud interface. Who cares? If you got your listed dependencies and know how to put your data in places and move it around and have it multiple places and have revision control systems and such, you're exercising a level of secret weapons in tech that is very much akin to what I felt with the Amiga computer back in the late 80s, early 90s, when that was the thing, and I had a first exposure to many of these concepts. I was getting a computer science education and didn't know it. It's come around again, and technology is now becoming actually loveworthy. The Unix/Linux style terminal is back in vogue. Old school is new again, and I have a lot to bring and to sort of, offer the world, and the timing is right to begin to do so. Everything is becoming so massively complex. I view myself as walking into the Emerald City. I understand that everything is incantations, and down at a certain level, even the scientists have to admit they don't understand stuff. At the quantum level, we have to deal with quantum effects. Our manufacturing processes are indeed so small that we have to deal with the fact that we don't know crap about non-locality, how quantum tunneling works, where in between. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff about life that still needs to be worked out. It's going to be done in the coming years, but in the meantime, we build devices like the phone I'm recording this on that are pure magic. And I, as an old dog, am here to tell you that you can still be alert, have a keen mind, learn new tricks, and share back to the community on things like YouTube pretty easily here with a minimum of editing. So I'll be switching to live. Thanks for joining me. Furry is boarding. I got to get moving. Hope to see you again soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so that whenever I publish a new video, you are notified.